The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
All right, here we go. It's another episode of the Florida Mezcal Podcast, powered by the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. This is Dave, your host and author. It is time once again for Mezcal Lauderdale, so we're going to be taking our annual break at this point to go over what is my absolute favorite spirit that you can find pretty much everywhere in the state of Florida and growing ever so rapidly, and that is Mezcal. If you have consumed tequila, believe it or not, you have consumed a Mezcal. It's just a fermented agave spirit. And I know from time to time we will do spirits here on the podcast, and we got some more spirits coming up. And we just had some spirits a few weeks ago with St. Augustine Distillery, but we are going to be talking to our sunny neighbors to the south and their penchant for making some of the most amazingly smoky, flavorful spirits I have ever tasted. And if you have not been before, Mezcal Lauderdale is one of the most fun events that you can go to. It is in Fort Lauderdale. It takes place Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, with the main event being Saturday, June 22nd from 2 to 5 p.m. That is the grand tasting. And this year it's going to be held at Sistrunk Marketplace, which was the home of Kaufner Brewery with Ralph Kaufner, who I do miss because he had some amazing beers and some amazing cigars as well. That brewery is now home of Dream State, which we have been able to sample on FloridaBeerBlog.com. If you go there, you can see some of the beers that we've seen from them. And we are trying to get them on the podcast as well. I think they are going to be doing something special for Mezcal Lauderdale for the grand tasting. That remains to be seen. And if you want to see it, the best thing for you to do is to head to our Instagram page. We are holding a contest for 2 free tickets for the grand tasting on June 22nd. But if you don't know what Mezcal is, let's go ahead and step back, and we're going to be chatting with a phenomenal guy by the name of Isra Bistrain. He is actually the co-founder of MezcalFest, which is one of the biggest mezcal festivals in Mexico. In fact, they are just outside Mexico City. The founder of Mezcal Lauderdale, Andrew Martineau, wanted to send me his information, and I sat down with Isra to talk about mezcal, how old it is, what it means to Mexico as a whole, and obviously some of the small producer partners that are making mezcal and growing the agave that is distilled into mezcal. Talk about MezcalFest a little bit, and maybe some of the things that we are going to be doing at Mezcal Lauderdale. If you've never heard of this before, I am not shocked, especially if you haven't listened to the other episodes of the Florida Beer Podcast. And trust me, we've been covering mezcal for a couple of years now, so it's a little surprising that you haven't. But enjoy this. It's a great episode. It's a great introduction to not only mezcal, but also what we're going to be doing at Mezcal Lauderdale. And without any further ado, here we go. Isra Bistrain, MezcalFest. Enjoy. So obviously in America, tequila sort of reigns supreme when it comes to agave spirits. It's pretty much everywhere. And unfortunately, mezcal, even with my family and friends, it still has an unfair name to it, that it's somehow a lesser version of tequila, or it's somehow runoff, or it's infected with drugs or something. Obviously, that is not the case, and that attitude is starting to change. In Mexico, present day, is mezcal more accepted? Is it more culturally important than it has been traditionally here in the United States?
Well, not yet. I mean, it's becoming more important, but that's in some way that's kind of new.
Okay.
Yes. So because as I told you just at the beginning, the important part that mezcal as a cultural spirit, I think it started like maybe 20 years ago, and it's because in 1994 is when the government decided to keep the copyright for the product.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that is when some producers and also the industry, they start to grow and taking another way and becoming something more important. One thing that I think I have to mention that is the historical part that mezcal has.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because obviously the spirit is not 20 years old. It has to go back farther than that. So how far back does mezcal actually go back in Mexico's history and in the cultural importance? Even in the small regional villages where it's produced today.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, also something to know is tequila. It's a mezcal.
Mm-hmm.
So we say all of us now we know it, and now we say it. Is the name is tequila, but the family name is mezcal. So why? Because the process is the same. How to produce it, how to treat the plant, but the difference is how tequila became important as a mezcal, because at the end it's a mezcal. But for the distillation of the plant, there are some historical information that we know that they found some archaeologists. They found, I think it's 300 or 400 before Christ.
Oh wow!
Some pots where they found that some agave plants, they were cooked.
Interesting.
So yeah. So that's one of the things, and I mean we can find all that information online and with all the sources that they are proven, or all the name of the archaeologists for the studies that they have been doing in the last 10 years, 15 years, when they knew that mezcal is becoming something important, so they started. So that's one of the points that mezcal is. They say that it's not like tequila. That tequila is like the 1540, 1590, something like that century.
Uh-huh.
So mezcal, it's a 2,000 years product. So it's something else.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that we know now. And it's like, wow, this is something else. I mean, this is something very traditional. It's even deeper in our culture. Oh, they found these guys. They found those pots close to Mexico City in this state, Puebla. Maybe you know about it. That is the east part of Mexico City. So they found it there. And what does it mean? It's also that mezcal is not just from Oaxaca. So now we know that mezcal, yes, Oaxaca is one of the most important areas for mezcal. Why? Because they have one of the highest numbers of different agaves, of different plants.
Mm-hmm.
So they, for historical reasons, well, now that we know that they have been treated, that they have been using this plant for different purposes since long time ago. So maybe it could be normal that they were doing something else. And that's Oaxaca, but also all around Mexico. And also something to know about Mexico is a country with the highest number of cactus and all the cactaceas family plants. So that's why also that's why tequila and mezcal are our more important spirits and the most representative spirits.
Absolutely.
Sure. So yes, just talking about mezcal again. For all the historical reason and information, and also how they produce it. That's why mezcal is becoming, even in Mexico nowadays, more important, and in some way becoming, and they say that is growing, more important than tequila.
Interesting.
Sure.
It seems that with mezcal, because they are not strictly limited to one agave, because they're not strictly limited to the Blue Weber, it seems like there's a lot more that you can do with mezcal, with blending and creating recipes and so on.
Yeah, so that's another point, because as we know, tequila, we just can use the blue agave,
Yeah.
the Tequilana Weber. So this is just one plant. This is one of the high, in terms of size, it's very high. Yes, it's kind of pale blue plant. But for mezcal, we can use all the other families of plants that we have with agaves. So there are more than 180, 200. I think some people, they say like 220, 230. But from all those plants, there is a small number that we can use to distillate. So there are just like 40 or 50 that we can use to distillate. But it's a big number. Just comparing with tequila, we can have like a big cocktail. And yes, in terms of distillations, we call them ensembles, like ensamble, the same in Spanish. So where they can use squish with espadín, with tobalá, or with mexicano, with coyote, and then we can start to talk about the name of the plants, and then also how they mix it when they distillate it or when they cook it. And it gives completely 100 of different kind of flavors, depending the recipe of the producer. That's also a big difference. And I have some friends that they have been telling me that they see mezcal as it's not as a wine, but for the different families and the different flavors, we can compare it as wine and how they produce it, because even if they use the same grape, let's talk about Tempranillo or Cabernet Sauvignon. But if it comes from Argentina, or if it comes from Chile, or if it comes from Spain or France, then there is like a different flavor.
Yeah. Now I was going to ask, could an espadín agave, just to use the most widely used agave for mezcal, if you were to grow an espadín in Oaxaca or in Jalisco or even in Arizona, could that theoretically have differences in flavor and the finished product?
Yes, completely. That's the point. So because we can try one espadín from Guerrero, or even from the same year, from the same harvesting time. Or we tried one espadín from Michoacán, same year, same plant, but a completely different flavor.
Interesting.
Yes. So that's another thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And some of that obviously has to do with the land, but I would assume that a large portion of that would also have to do with the families that have been growing and distilling these agaves for generations. And it seems like a lot of these expressions are representative not just of the land and of the agave, but also the people that are doing it. So can you talk a little bit about these families that have been distilling, generation after generation after generation, keeping mezcal alive in Mexico?
Yes, of course. That's something very important, and it's nice that you mentioned that. Just to give an example, in MezcalFest this year, in last March, in our last edition, we had maestra mezcalera, because we call them master mezcalier. She's a producer. She's one of the youngest producer in Oaxaca.
Interesting.
She's like 24, 26, but she's the fifth generation. So they have been producing for almost 250 years and trying to keep the same way to produce the same, because it's a recipe, the same recipe, using the same kind of tools, keeping the product distillating for the same period of time, also fermenting. And yes, that's a family tradition, sure, completely. And a lot of families, they use different times, sometimes different temperature, even the water. Sometimes they leave the water aging, or they have water just like aging for a few days. So because they say that, yes, even also the plant, some people, they cut the plant and they leave it for a few days. Some people, they cut it and they distillate it just the next day. But some people, they say that they have to leave it for a few days, maybe two. Other family, they say, no, let's leave it 5. And then all those kind of things change completely the recipe. Also the kind of wood, the firewood that they use. Some people, they use oak. Some people, they use pine. Some people, they use, they mix it as well. And they give, it gives completely a different flavor as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. It's also the kind of stones that they use for cook it, because for the ancestral way, they do this ground oven, and they cover it with stones, and they put some stones at the ground. Depending the kind of stone, also it gives a different kind of flavor. So yeah, it's a big process with a different options depending the family. So that's why we have like a very different products every time.
That's amazing. I never expected that much differentiation in how you can produce mezcal. And is it safe to say that with some of these families that there are regions and there are villages and towns where the mezcal production is a significant portion of the local economy?
Yes, completely. And nowadays, that's why it's also becoming more important, because a lot of families, they have benefits and their incomes were growing thanks to mezcal, and thanks to how our society as Mexicans, we have been now taking mezcal as a very important part of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we can see it. We can see it completely with a lot of families in different areas. One of the most important areas is when we can see those benefits for the families. Well, Oaxaca for sure, because it's growing a lot. But it's Guerrero, Michoacan as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we can see it. Puebla, because some people, they start to produce Puebla close to Mexico City. In this area, it's like the periphery of Mexico City, not the suburbs. It's out of Mexico City as a state. We have another state, that we call it Estado de Mexico, the state of Mexico. That is, this geographical area is outside of Mexico City. It's not part of Mexico City. It's the northwest of the city. They have a big production, and now they have like a kind of tours to visit different families and different and different producers, and with a very high quality mezcal. So also Guanajuato and Zacatecas is becoming important. Durango, because the thing is that now the government, they gave for, I think, 13 or 12 states the copyright as a mezcal producers.
Gotcha.
Sure, that's kind of new, but we can find more, because even if we go to the south of Oaxaca, next to Chiapas state, that we know that Chiapas is the second biggest jungle in the world after the Amazonas. It's a very humid area, wild, green, and also the north of Chiapas. They have agaves, they have plants, cactus as well. So they are producing nowadays, and also yes, for the type of land that they have, the ground, humid, with more minerals.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and also the flavors, and we can see it. So yes, it's important. That's why a lot of people, they are also getting involved in terms of politics
Mm-hmm.
for the mezcal, but it's becoming something important in an economical way, even for the country, sure, and the families, of course.
And what kind of want to go back to something that you had sort of mentioned earlier, that one of the people that you featured at MezcalFest was a fifth generation master mezcalier, but female, in that one of the things that here with craft beer in the United States, we are starting to really see an influx of more female brewers. It seems that more women mezcaliers are starting to really come to the fore in Mexico.
Yes, they are. Just talking about this case with this maestra, with this master, but some of the most important, I think, well, there are two women that they are considered as the two of the most important persons for mezcal in Mexico. La maestra Sosima, she's from Oaxaca. Also la maestra Berta, also from Oaxaca. But they have been working a lot in terms of cultural tradition and the role of mezcal nowadays. They have also their own brands, and they try to keep them as well in a very traditional way to produce it. But and in some way, it's because the men's they do the hard job, so they harvest, they cut, so they charge all the plants, and then for the recipe or how to keep looking the distillation and the time and the flavor are women's.
Gotcha.
Yes, so the hard job is for men's. So it's all the harvest and all working with the plants and cutting and charging and moving horses also, because you know that they use, for some of them they still use donkeys or horses to smash the plants in a very ancestral way. So doing the hard job is men's, and then women is taking care of the recipe in some way, like cooking, kitchen. So yes, that's why they are they are very important for the process, and some of them, they know even better the recipe than their husbands.
Gotcha. That's kind of interesting. And we have now mentioned Mezcal Fest a few times. That is the yearly Mezcal festival that you have created in Mexico City. What was the impetus behind creating this, and how has it sort of been received by the greater Mez circles in the region?
Well, the beginning of Mezcal Fest, we started in 2017, 18 with a friend.
Right.
Yeah, with Alex. We were working together for so long because I know him since 2001 or 99. I mean, a long time ago. He has a family in Oaxaca. He has been bringing mezcal since a long time ago in Mexico City. So I also, thanks to him, I know a lot about mezcal. Even not just for him, because I have a lot of friends that they have been bringing mezcal from different regions and tasting and trying a lot of different things. Knowing that he has a cultural events background, events producer, and also I have been producing a lot of events before this, but it's also part of my background. Then he decided, and he told me to create it before pandemic, just 1 year before pandemic, knowing that mezcal experience here in Mexico City to bring producers, and also to bring producers, but not being part of the big industry brands production. So that was the idea. The idea was to bring small producers, knowing small families with small production, knowing that they take care in a different way for their production. Most of them just ancestral way or artisanal way, non-industrial at all. So all the producers that we bring, and that's one of the goals of MezcalFest is just bringing producers that they know they are not industrial production, because we try to take care as well about the cultural process that is behind the product. What does it mean is the families that they try to keep their recipes using very traditional tools, taking care in a more, let's say, in a deepest way for the quality as well about what we are drinking, about the recipe. We never have had problems with the big brands of big producers because they have been moving more in an industrial way in big supermarkets, exporting and having more capital to keep their company. So they come. Some of them they come to try with different producers because they continue looking for something new. But no, we never had problems with that. So they just took it and they take it the festival in a good way, because it's nowadays we're lucky nowadays it's considered like the most important mezcal experience, mezcal festival in Mexico City. So, but no, never, and also we are open because some of them we know that they work with people and they try to help them as well for small producers or families with small production. So we don't have problems with the big companies.
I find it interesting that you have scholarships available for some of these very small producers to be able to come to the event.
Yes. That's also part of is one of the goals with the festival. Yes, when we did the first one, we know since the beginning that some families they can't afford to come to the capital city, living in small towns far away. Maybe 15 hours taking a bus, or maybe some of them 20, they come from the north, it is far away. And some of them, they can afford the expense to come, knowing that they have a very high quality product and taking care a lot about their production, and also making their life and their incomes because of their product, their production. So since the beginning, we decided to implement scholarships, this kind of funding for families, and every year we do it for every edition.
That's
so
awesome.
we try to bring always someone, and we pay everything. So we pay transport, we pay for the accommodation, and also we give like a small fee to support, to help them. Also, trying to show to the public their product to see if they can increase their incomes, and just to help them. Yeah, for sure, because we know that in some areas in Mexico it's kind of difficult still to move around, and part of our culture, but also knowing that we and thanks to them we can organize as well MezcalFest. So it's also to say thank you to all of them, and to help them. So that's part of the festival. It's one of the most important part of the festival, because we are the only one. There are nowadays, since the last year, I think there are other two festivals, but they don't give those kind of help for the participants. Yeah.
Now, you are coming up here in a couple weeks to come to Mezcal Lauderdale, correct?
Yeah, it is. I think it's still confirmed, but yes.
Yeah. Are you going to be heading to the grand tasting? Are you going to be participating in any of the events? What are you planning on doing?
Well, Andrew, he just told me to be part of the festival, to support them, to be with them, to be with him. I don't know exactly if I'm going to be part for the big tasting. Yeah. I mean, that will be great. Yeah, sure, to be part of it. Why not?
And I know
but also
you're doing a workshop at the summit the next day, correct?
Yes. When Andrew told me that if I can come, it's like, yeah, I can do it. I mean, as a Mexican, we know the process. I have a visa. So for me, it's fine. So it's like, if you want, I can come. But I mean, I have been there several times. I never have been in Florida, but well. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, well, if you want me, if you have an idea to be part of something, just let me know. I mean, we'll be so glad and so happy to participate in some way.
Absolutely.
If it helps in something, because, well, yeah. So, yes, we're going to be there in a couple of weeks. Yeah, it's soon.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. It'll be very soon. Well, I definitely can't wait to meet you at the grand tasting. And we will have to try some of the products there and expressions there this year. Israel, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. And also, that will be so nice to meet you there. And, well, just for your audience, well, I'm going to bring a few things just from MezcalFest.
Oh, perfect.
Just to keep it there. Maybe information and everything that the people, they want to know about the link that now we have with Mezcal Lauderdale and MezcalFest.
Yeah.
So, yes, I will be so happy if for all the people that they come, and if they want to know something, very open just to talk with them and to have a nice chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. We're looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah, me too. And thank you. Have a great day there.
So thank you so much to Isra for his time. I do appreciate it. And thank you to Andrew from Mezcal Lauderdale for setting that interview up. Isra will be there on June 22nd for the grand tasting, like we mentioned. And if you want to win tickets, the best thing for you to do is to head to our Instagram account right now at Florida Beer Blog. You'll be able to see we have a post that's been pinned to the top, and you'll be able to see what you need to do to win tickets. Next week, we will be back with another Mezcal importer. We'll be chatting with them about some of the stuff that they are bringing to Mezcal Lauderdale. A couple expressions that I have not tried yet, so I'm excited to try those. If you are coming, or if you do want to go to Mezcal Lauderdale, it's pretty easy. Just go to MezcalLauderdale.com, or you can find them online at Mezcal Lauderdale on Instagram. It's probably the best place to go. Or you can always take a look at our stuff. We're on Instagram, Threads, X, and Blue Sky at Florida Beer Blog. We are FL Beer Blog on Facebook. On the internet at floridabeerblog.com and floridabeerpodcast.com. And you can email us at floridabeerblog@gmail.com. You will also see that we are a proud member of the Florida Podcast Network, a collection of amazing Florida-based podcasts that I recommend that you check out. You can find them on the internet at floridapodcastnetwork.com. We are available on every single good streaming podcasty app, from Apple Podcasts and Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube, Libsyn. You can even ask your smart speaker to play the latest episode of the Florida Beer Podcast, and you will get that. We do release every Wednesday. And the best way for you to keep that going is to subscribe to us on the podcasting app of your choice. And if you are able to, please leave a nice, juicy 5-star review. It does help us get the word out, which is amazing. Our field producer is Steve Pekala, who, by the way, is going to be pouring again at Mezcal Lauderdale, so you'll be able to go in and say hello. Intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich. Executive producer for the Florida Podcast Network and Grand High Poobah is Jemmy Legagneur. This is David Butler, your host and author. We will see you next week with more Mezcal goodness. Thank you so much for listening, and drink Florida craft.